Welcome to Snob Chronicles. It's your girl, the Gransberry, aka the Stadium Queen, and I got my boy D Jones in the house. What's up, D Jones?
What's poppin'? Happy holidays, happy New
Um,
Year's, all that good stuff.
yeah, something like that. Happy belated Beyonce Bowl,
Yeah,
Christmas.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think for me, week 17 was the longest week of football.
Was it? It's like we got ball every day. What we doing?
Yeah, I'm sure the NFL was happy. They were pretty much on TV every day of week 17, just about. And I think being so early in week 17, it just seemed like I lost track of the days. Like somewhere between Christmas on Wednesday, I didn't realize it was only Saturday, and still there were more games to go.
Yeah, yeah. And I was surprised Saturday. I'm like, it got three games today. I'm like, Jesus. I start feeling bad. I try to balance the family time with football. And, my wife I know when ball on, you want to watch it. And I'm like, man, it's every day. I got to kind of, pick the games I really want to watch.
And
So,
it's funny you mention that because I was having a conversation with somebody else, and they were saying the same thing. They were like, you prepared to watch your game, maybe one other good game, but with the way the games were spaced out, you want all of them, but then you realize it would take 4 days and monopolize all day,
yeah, time.
because even the days we weren't on, college was on.
Yeah,
So it was just
yeah.
really a lot of football. But even with that, I definitely enjoyed the halftime show of the Beyonce Bowl. Shout out to Netflix for coming up with that idea. But the
Yeah.
other parts on Christmas Day were a little hard to swallow as being a Houston fan. But sometimes it happens, right? I guess in the upside, we weren't in Baltimore and then having to fly home for Christmas for
It
that.
was a road game. Yeah.
So the thing about Christmas Day is all the road teams won. So so the road teams got to go home happy on the plane, in a good mood. So for that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I will say that my road was inundated with people who were strictly there for halftime. And that wasn't really the strangest thing. I think I really did not expect people to completely dress up for a full concert.
Man,
And
talk
they were
about
like
it.
dressed up. Like I had to look at my phone and be like, okay, am I at Renaissance or am
Man,
I mean, I know they was both at NRG, but which one am I at? Because
it was funny because I didn't have the same experience as far as my section. It was only
okay,
I think it was only like one person, one lady that sat in front of me that specifically was there for the. She's like, I'm here for Beyonce, and that's it. It's like she wasn't even paying attention to the game. And
okay.
I think one of the guys, gave her some slack about it, just playing with her. And she was like, "Oh, I'm a Saints fan. I'm really just here for Beyonce." And so, we had a good laugh about it. But even my daughter, she went with me. She was there for both. She's a big Beyonce fan, and my wife did give her the ticket, but she was, she still was into the game, but predominantly there for Beyonce. And so she thought about taking her mic and just asking people, "Are you here for the concert or are you here for the game?" That's why that's what prompted my post after halftime. Okay, I'm really here for the concert, not the game, because
Yeah.
the game wasn't much to write home about. But I definitely noticed going in. I was like, man, this is they dress like it's a concert. It's not. This is
I mean,
not
I saw the
football.
lady with the rhinestone hat, the rhinestone purse, the rhinestone boots, and I was
Man,
like, she do know it's just a brief halftime performance. But and so mine was a little bit more serious. I sat next to a couple where he said he bought the tickets that morning as a Christmas gift and surprised his girlfriend. And she was like, I'm a Beyonce fan. And that was fine. But what was confusing is the one time we scored, um, if you remember, we had a penalty on the kick, and Baltimore elected to make us re-kick,
Yeah.
and we pinned them even deeper, which set us up for the safety.
Mm.
So remember, we're cheering because we pinned them inside the 5, essentially, and that was a great punt. And so we cheering. She was like, "I don't understand, why is everybody so excited? What's going on?" And in that moment, I wanted to be like, see, if you wouldn't have brought your butt to the Beyonce Bowl, we wouldn't even. But in theory, I'm like, okay, it's always somebody at the game who might not know what's going on.
Absolutely.
And she did ask, but
Yeah.
the only thing that was hard for me was there was absolutely no cheering by these people. So you already have the Ravens fans present, but then you have only one out of every other 10 being a Texans fan. So there's no cheering, or they didn't know when to cheer. So the people behind me kept cheering on Texans offense. They had a whole cheer. And I was like, is this your first game? And
Hey,
I'm like, come on, man.
that
I
irritates
mean,
me every week.
but okay, well, moving on. It was a
Yeah.
great day. And
But
football
we didn't have too much to cheer about that game anyway. So,
yeah, so we probably should move on from that.
so yeah,
But shout out to Texas Southern Ocean of Soul, being a graduate of TSU and PV, SWAC. Shout out to all of that. All the beautiful people. It was great to see people that we actually went to high school. Their children are
yeah,
in the Ocean of Soul. So that was even more special to see, and how they were celebrating their children being a part of that moment. And then, I did my part. My end zone was the one that had to do the cards to say my house. So I had to participate. So I did my little part at halftime. But Sunday night. So originally I had plans, and I I had plans to go to Sunday game. That was the plan, right? I was going
yeah.
to Washington versus
Atlanta.
Atlanta, and it ended up being flexed to Sunday night. So I, of course, made all my new arrangements to be able to go, and I was all geeked about it. And shout out to my girl April for that. And I didn't think, like, I like football, and I definitely thought I would enjoy myself, but I didn't think you never think you're going to get that, right? You never think you're going to get
Well, you never know.
overtime. Just the other amazement of it, right? Because they switched to, Penix as the full-time starter. And so this was the first time 2 first-round rookies went head to head at the same time. It just was like all on Sunday Night Football, of course, because it's not the first time because of course, Bryce and CJ played, but the thing was, it was just so exciting. Everything had all these perfect little elements to it.
Yeah.
And in the second half, I was like, you know what? I really think they're gonna, take off and come back. And, I don't know how it looked on TV, but when they kicked the field goal to attempt to win the game, the Falcons at the end, we could see it was way short before it even got there because of where our suite was at.
Mm-hmm.
We had the aerial view, so you can see it's already dropping, and it's nowhere near
Where it
the
needs to
end
be.
zone.
Yeah.
But then when I saw the television version of it, I could see why when they were showing, social media posts where Falcons fans thought they had won and they were in bars cheering because they watching the kick go. They can't tell from television
The
that it's
distance.
short. On TV, you can tell if it's too far left or too far right, but sometimes you can't see the depth perception. And so it was just like a uproar in the stadium when it happened, of course. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, I was kind of glad about that in the sense that I felt like the flag prior for PI was a little weak, and you just really hate for a game to advance on that. If you make a great catch, you make a great play, you make a great stop or a great sack or catch, I'm with it. But when we just start giving out PIs that put teams in scoring position, like those ones that put you on the 1 yard line or, that type of thing, I'm not saying don't throw the flag. That's not what I mean. It
Yeah.
just seemed like it should be a really good flag. If it's iffy, be careful. And I felt like more than anything, it could have been holding or um
Illegal contact.
illegal contact. I was about to say the penalty versus the name of it, but yeah, illegal
Yeah.
contact. But I didn't see PI. I felt like there
Well,
wasn't
the difference though is really when if the ball is in the
when the
air.
ball is in the air. I know.
Yeah.
I'm
So
just saying it sucked
yeah,
because I just felt like it wasn't a good.
poetic justice. It was poetic justice. It's
Yeah.
one of those things. But I gotta first of all apologize to the schedule makers and the flex people because when they flexed that game, I was immediately like, how do you flex that over the Vikings Packers game? And the Vikings Packers game was ended up being much better. They closed it in the end and they lost by two. Vikings won by two. But I thought the obvious flex was really, the Vikings and Packers rivalry game. Both of them have a lot to play for. The division is still at hand. So I thought that was probably the better matchup than the Commanders and Falcons with all this that's going on with the Falcons. But that ended up being a great game. So it was a great flex. And yeah, I was thinking about you while you were there. I was like, man, she got a one. She got a one on this one because this is a really good game. So yeah, them boys ball.
Man, I mean, I was like, I walked in to just football heaven. I was like,
That's what
the
we love about it, though, right?
man, oh man, and I just was grateful for a good time, but it's even better when the game is amazing. I did get some time pregame on the field and captured a few shots of, we have some TV alums on the Falcons, Hodge, receiver, and Coach Black, one of the coaches. He just actually went into the PV Hall of Fame this last Hall of Fame cycle.
Absolutely.
So that was nostalgic in itself. But yeah, great game, great game. And I know you felt that way about the game for Green Bay and the Vikings. But I
Mhm.
think the reason why they also didn't is because they were banking on what difference week 18 would make. And so they already knew that regardless of the outcome of that game, week 18 would probably control. Because if you remember, it was when they flexed it, it was based on what what their records were at that time.
Mhm.
So you would either be tied or they would be the winner. So I think that also played a part in it as
Oh
well.
yeah, I'm sure that. Like I said, I know those guys got their way of doing things and their methods. I just thought it was a better matchup. but yeah, it ended up and that it was flex before the Penix change too. So so I was like, okay, that kind of could work out. It could not work out type situation, but it worked out the way it was supposed to. And plus, I'm sure Fox didn't want to give up that game of the week with the Packers and Vikings too. So I know a lot goes into that
Correct.
I'm not even entertaining. So,
Correct.
but yeah, I'm just,
Right. We're
I'm
not
just,
gonna get into the rules of flex, and you
yeah,
can read a whole article on that.
yeah, I'm just
Um,
saying from this fan, I thought that was the way to go, but it didn't work out for my fandom anyway. So, so it's all good. So yeah, let me get your opinion on these teams that basically said, f that draft pick and went out
well,
there and ball this week. We're
well,
talking about all these teams at the top of the draft that ball.
I'm gonna put that right up there with my version of teams of the week because shout out to players wanting to play and coaches wanting to coach. You
Man.
know, at the end of the day, it's 18 weeks of football. You get 17 chances at it to be your best. And that's really what, fans pay for. That's what fans tune in for. You want their best. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you want their best every week. And I've had this conversation on different topics, and I answer it this way, and I think it fits. I said, no, the fans feel like they lost. But from a business decision, everybody did what they should do. These guys are trying to get jobs for next season. They're trying to earn performance bonuses. There are different elements to having a football contract. There's incentives in place. That's one thing. But then also the incentive bonuses that players get for the amount of time and snaps that they play. You need to be in the game effectively playing to win.
Yeah.
And we can't start being a league where teams are going to quit the last month of play to get the right spot for the draft. Okay. Because if we had more time, which I would not utilize it, but we could always do it. We could go through plenty of drafts and draft picks that don't pan out because you waited to get those particular players.
Yeah.
We can name first round draft picks or first picks that did not work out. So to effectively say that the goal should be to tank for a top draft pick is doing too much at the end of the day. And I'm not with it. I am extremely proud of those players keeping the integrity of the game at the forefront of what they're doing. Because if we start to lose sight to where we're going to, if you remember, there was some uproar conversation when Coach Brian was leaving the Dolphins, and there was insinuation of you need to tank, right? There were people
Oh yeah.
saying that,
Mhm.
and that was part of the structure. You start to affect the integrity of the game if you're not going to go out there and put your best effort. And let's not confuse that with sitting players to rest for the playoffs. Okay,
Or putting a player down that's actually hurt.
correct,
That's totally different. You know what I
correct,
mean? I think
correct.
those two categories are different. And what you're talking about with Brian Flores and Miami ownership got penalized for that because they was basically wanting him to lose games for those purposes. And and even here locally, some fans talked about Lovey Smith that year. Winning that last game. It's certain decisions throughout the game I respect. When they scored the touchdown, they didn't go for the tie to go to overtime because that don't make sense. It's the last game of the season. You don't have playoff. You go for the win, and then they won the game, right? Essentially, which ended up bumping their draft slot from 1 to 2 for the Texans when they drafted CJ. But
Correct.
those coaches and those players are not only doing what they love, they're doing their job, and their job is never to lose. And then they're auditioning always, right? These players, a lot of those players that was in that game were not, you know, starters for the year, or you got some guys that, like you said, playing for incentives, but you also have some guys playing for their next contract, and they want to put good tape out there. They don't want to put tape out there of them slacking or doing anything like that, and that goes unnoticed, by a lot of people with their fanatic attitudes. That they need to check those at the door, because that's just not what it's about.
Well, let's go full circle on that. There was an
Hmm.
aggressive anger from the Houston fan base on winning the last game of the season.
Yeah,
But then when the team front office did an effective job of managing to move up into the third spot, they did what they needed to do at 2 and 3. So at the end of the day, a team will do what a team needs to do.
amen.
And I think back to a conversation that was picked up on a hot mic. I'm not sure if at the time Coach Tomlin was hot mic'd or Henry, but if you recall, a few seasons back, he saw Henry up close and he was like, "You a big dude." He was like, and he was essentially saying, like, you wouldn't be waiting for me in the draft because we not gonna be,
Yeah, I do remember that.
like I can't remember the words, but that was the concept of his.
Basically, you ain't gonna be there when we draft.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been there when we drafted anyway, because
Yeah,
basically
and
we always playing to win, and we not gonna be in the top 10
we
picks.
ain't never gonna be that high, and it's gonna
And
cost too much for us to get that high.
right. And if
Yeah,
you think about that, that goes back to his record, right?
yeah,
He's
yeah.
effectively not had a losing record. They've
So,
effectively been in a decent number of playoff games and in contention. And right now, they're still in position to do the same. And they're doing it with two free agent quarterbacks. They traded for one. So I shouldn't say free agency, but more so front office work, right? So
mhm.
they're doing the internal work without relying on tanking your team.
Yep.
And so it's a prime example of just do your job. Players' jobs are to play, coach's job are to coach, front office job is to front office. And fans' jobs include enjoying the game
But
with the
support.
product and support. Now that doesn't mean you have to like everything they do. But guess what?
No.
You don't like everything your friends do. You don't like everything your parents do. But we move on. And so for me, that was my long spiel to say the teams of the week are the teams that went out there to play to win. So hey, and if they knock out a fellow AFC South opponent from the playoffs, thanks for that too.
Yeah,
But
way to go, Giants. Way to go, Giants. First
uh,
home win all season.
so like I said, I was at the Sunday night football game, and so then I traveled the next day, and I'm now in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl tomorrow. And ironically, I was sitting at a table next to a father and daughter, and he was a Giants fan, and he was discussing the pleasure of, yeah, we won, and we don't have the number one seed, but he said it sure felt good to get a win. And he was telling his daughter, like, and we knocked the team out the playoffs. And I was over there like, see, he get it. Like, he
Get it.
want the number one spot, but he also took joy in what was displayed in that game. And also, Neighbors is over 1,000 yards receiving for the season
How many
without
games? I think he missed by 2 or 3 games too.
so that's a pretty good season for a rookie not playing, and they still got a game left.
Yeah.
So and that's my second team for the week. Uh I don't have all their names in front of me, but we got four rookie receivers, all LSU, all over 1,000 yards receiving.
In their first season.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Thomas Jr. this year, Malik Neighbors this year. Uh,
Them the two I knew. I didn't
those
realize
are the
the
ones from
other
this
two.
year. The other ones were
Yeah,
previous years. Yeah.
correct. But he done had four.
Well,
Yeah.
I would assume Jamar and JJ.
Uh-uh.
No,
Uh-uh.
that would be my guess. It would be somebody
Um,
else.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's
I'll look it up. You go ahead.
yeah, I probably have to look that up. I was trying to see if we was gonna get coach in here before we talked about our next topic, but did you have any other standouts before we get to the poll that I
Oh,
posted
we
today?
we we got to shout out. We got to shout out the four in Detroit. Detroit has four players all over 1,000 yards, two running backs and two receivers. I think they said it's the first time that's ever happened. So have two receivers over 1,000 and two running backs over 1,000 yards, all-purpose yards, I believe. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
And Montgomery hasn't played the last two games.
Correct. Correct. Talk about it. I think it's all-purpose yards, so I think it's counting
It don't matter.
their
It's
passing and their
effectively,
running. But that's crazy. That's bananas.
yeah, I love it. I love it. So I guess we might not get coach in here because we need to keep it moving because we know the playoff game just started. So we want to get to the games too. Look, I got my Heisman shirt on. Last year I got to the Heisman house when they were out at Colorado and they gave away free Heisman shirts. I love this little shirt. And anyway, let's talk about this MVP race because in week 12 we had a conversation about who was our top four for MVP. And we could make a long conversation about top four, but I don't think we need to. I think we just need to talk about top two.
We don't talk about the two. Before you get into that, let me go ahead and give you that stat. It is those four: Justin Jefferson,
Okay.
Jamar Chase, um, Neighbors, and Johnson this year.
Okay. Okay.
So it
It
was
was.
those.
Okay.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
So top two.
Thank you.
No,
Top
you
two.
good.
So top two, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And this has
Mm-hmm.
been debated, argued back and forth endlessly for,
Mm-hmm.
the last few days. Um, and when we last discussed this conversation, our clear cut agreement was Josh was in first position. And I think the difference between our conversation is we were very uh, insistent on saying this is week 12, that this was not our definite winner. It was not, it was his to lose.
We
We
didn't
were
call it
like,
over.
no, it's week 12. Now, a few other people made the mistake of calling it over and giving it to one or the other. And we personally, we text a lot during games, especially Sundays, and we both were at the conclusion that there had been a shift in who we saw as number one. And I think the only thing that disappoints me lately in the conversation, instead of being a proponent for your whoever you think is number one and pushing that discussion, it has been now let's attack why we don't want to let the other person be number one. And um, hey Noah, and his question is the MVP going to essentially be a quarterback award going forward?
It
And
pretty much is.
pretty much.
We
And
talk about that too.
we talk about that endlessly every year. Why don't they just change the name to the award so we can stop making people think they're actually competing for the MVP award, because they're not. Um, but and hey, Marcus is saying it's hard to leave Barkley out, and I don't think it's hard to leave him out. I think there's clearly two other people that pushed up over him, and
I don't even know.
well, I don't know if it's both pushed up over him. So let's
No,
go.
no, no. Go ahead. Go. Because
So
we gonna backtrack to what we've been talking about.
okay,
So to stay true to Fans Now Chronicles, we'll keep it. The MVP. We talking about the quarterbacks. The offensive player of the year is clearly Saquon Barkley.
right. I think
So
it's his. I think it's over. They're gonna give him that award. It's that discussion is over. I
yeah,
think Jaden Daniels is gonna get the
the rookie
award for offensive rookie of the
rookie
year.
of the
That
year.
award is over.
Yeah.
But these two, Josh Allen and Lamar, and this is one of those situations which we're not going to do a full discussion on. If it was the Heisman and you picked either one of the top two, I would have been like, okay, with either one winning, right? I think you
Mm-hmm.
make your argument on either one without bringing up the other one. The problem I've had in the discussion about Lamar and Josh lately is people keep saying that he benefits from Derrick Henry, when we all know, because it's on fact, Derrick just got there. He has a whole year of winning the MVP without him. Okay. So to say that Derrick Henry is what gives him the element of what he has, I would then argue Derrick Henry in his way, and he would have had even more rushing yards had he not had a Derrick Henry. So he literally almost has double the rushing of Josh with a Derrick Henry. So it the turnover, and I know it's not an all stats game, but are we saying that now we're giving credit to a quarterback for players they traded away or added? Because then the concept was, well, he lost Diggs. Well, Lamar was out here winning MVP when who was his receivers when he won it the first time? Talk to me. Who was his star receivers when he won it the first time?
His tight ends. That's it.
That's it. That's
That's
it.
it.
Andrews. I
Mark
can't even
Andrews.
remember. And so every argument that you're trying to give on that, I can dispute it and show you he's done it without it. So for me, I think it's just when you're so determined to give someone an opportunity at the award, you have to find something wrong with the other person versus just arguing your person. And I think that's what's starting to happen. Like they're trying to justify to themselves that, man, he's having a really good year. It's time for Josh to win it. And then Lamar just keeps showing up and shutting it down.
Well, me and you, we had this conversation, right? So it's we had this conversation before in the sense that
Can I pause
go ahead,
you?
yeah,
And
go
the
ahead.
only reason why is because I want to get a shout out to Big Sarge. And he's saying Jared Goff. And I want to catch him because I
He
don't
said
know if
he should be in the race. He
I
in the
know,
race.
I know, I know, I know, I know. But I wanted to
Yeah.
catch him because he busy. He got big time
Oh yeah,
media
he
time with the
big. He
Texans and
big.
Rockets. So we want to catch him while he gave us some time. So thank you for
And
giving us some
Rockets play.
time, Sarge. So just to catch you up, we had golf in our top 5 when we did it week 12. And tonight we was just only discussing the top 2. Part of the reason we couldn't give it to golf is because it's been proven at the times in which the Lions can't win, it's golf's fault. And if you make the game about golf, that's usually when they lose. So for me, yeah, they managed to beat us, but part of the 5 turnovers when he played Houston was because the run game was being shut down and he had to throw more. Once they got that run game back going, it's less on him. Now he was threading some nice balls last night on Monday Night Football into a
He been
great lead.
balling.
So we
He been
believe
balling.
he in the race, but I just believe he not ahead of those 2. Well, really, I don't even think he ahead of Saquon in my opinion.
Nah, he didn't make our top 3.
He
And
didn't make
then
that top.
Carlos mentioned Joe
So
Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow is
shout
balling,
out to
but
Carlos. We did. So let me just tell you the only reason why at the time we didn't have Burrow is because we had Goff, Henry, Saquon, Josh,
and
and
Lamar.
Lamar. And
That's
so
what we started with.
right, and we were getting ready to bump down Goff and bump Burrow up. So if you think about it, Burrow's been on a streak for about 9 weeks of 3 or more touchdowns a game. At that time, he would only have done that for a couple of weeks. So they had only, won a few games. And so we know historically, if your team is under 500, you're not winning the MVP race. So that's the only reason why we think y'all are giving great candidate options, but I just want to kind of give you, if you go back and look at our show week 12, we're picking that conversation up. But as far as Burrow, that's why he wasn't in our top 5 in week 12, because we know they won't under that. So
But yeah, but I mean, and Josh is playing an MVP caliber season for sure, and all those guys, any guy that you name, whether it be Golf, whether it be Burrow, whether it be Josh, whether it be Lamar, Saquon, all these players are the best players on their team, and are the reason their teams are being successful. But we can only pick one. So if we can only pick
yeah.
one, in your list, it might be Golf. It might be Burrow. In our list, we narrowed it down to Josh and Lamar. And Josh is playing very well. Josh is the reason. Take Josh off Buffalo, they're not good. You take Lamar off of Baltimore, they're not as good. But my
If you
eye
take
test, my eye test for me says it's Lamar. And it goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago. We looked at the schedule. At the time, we had Josh as our number 1 person, but we also saw what he had ending the season versus the competition that Lamar still had in front of him. And Lamar is essentially taking his team down the stretch and making big plays, and he's standing out while doing it. So that's why, for me, Lamar took that number 1 spot, and right now he has that number 1 spot, which I don't see him losing after they win the division on Saturday against the Browns.
So on your question about defense, Brian said even with 10 players out on defense, he still keeps them at the top. Well, that's defense. So they also have to keep winning games, high scoring games. How many times this?
Well, that's kind of what he's saying. He's saying
Yeah,
without having a defense, he's keeping them at the top. But the
yeah,
running game
but the
is a
running
big
game
part of
is
that.
just as effective. We
Yeah,
just
it's a
said
huge part of
that
that.
he literally has two running backs with over 1,000 uh yards from
Scrimmage
scrimmage.
yard. Yeah.
So you got 2,000 in running backs. We ain't even got to your receivers. So he has four people on his team getting there with that, and so he's getting a lot of offensive help. He's getting a ton of offensive help. So I
But
think that's what
no shade to him. He balling.
that's what I say. It doesn't
Yeah.
take away that he's playing great,
Yeah.
but it knocks him out the MVP conversation.
Well, it just knocks him down, not out. He's just down.
Well, if you
He in the
down, you out.
conversation.
Well, if you
Well,
down, you out because we
in
already
our
know how they
conversation, we
gonna
only
go.
talking about the two. We only talking about the
Yeah,
two.
because I
Yeah.
mean, let's get real. That's all anybody talking about. But to make it a good conversation, they're discussing four, but we know they only deciding between two.
Well, it could be only one person that makes history next week, and I don't know, man.
Saquon, I know.
I mean, it's only one that can make history next week.
So can I say this? I think this is a great time for football. Like, I don't care. Like, if Josh wins, wouldn't be upset.
I'm
If
not
Lamar
upset. Yeah,
wins, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying
yeah,
usually it's so like when you start, I think the thing is we don't like complacency, right? You don't
right.
want it to turn into a thing where here we go, he getting this award again. I mean, you have to think Brady has 7 rings, but only 3 MVPs. And that was the brief conversation I had with somebody else who kept saying, well, he hasn't been to he hasn't won a championship with being an MVP. If you go look at the last 10 MVPs and line up who won MVP and who won the ring, I think Patrick only lined up once.
Yeah.
Every other time it was Aaron Rodgers, but somebody else won Super Bowl. And Brady lined up once. Every
Once. Yeah.
time it's the
One time.
opposite.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that your team's not good. It doesn't mean you didn't play well. It just means somebody else was more valuable. So
Now,
I'm good.
now, my last point on it is what is whack, what is crazy and should be outlawed or removed is we gonna let Josh win it because he ain't got one. Lamar got 2. No, don't do that. Don't do that. If you feel like he's the guy, just say he's the
Or
guy.
you
But
want
don't give it
him
to him because
if
he ain't
you
got
were
one.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The delays
No,
be
you
throwing me off. I'm sorry.
you good. You good. You good.
And if you remember briefly last year, there was an attempt to bring up the conversation. Well, he won last year and his numbers not better than last year's. Cheers, MVP. He better than the options you have for this year.
Shit.
And
This year.
as soon as you go, well, it's not a stat award. Okay. It's not a stat award. Tell me who you can put
Then they bring
on
up
the
stats.
Ravens today to do what they doing. Tell me who would have been in Houston at Beyonce Bowl and did us like that. Just
The crazy thing though, if you take them and put them on the other team, I think both teams successful.
you do.
I do. I do. I do.
I think there's a slight difference in the lines. I don't think because they
I
get a
think
lot more run in the run game. You don't think?
sorry. This dude, man, every time Gonzalez, you throw me off.
Gonzalez, shout out to Gonzalez because you know what that means. Gonzalez understands and pays attention to me. And so for that, I'm gonna give him credit. He just
Yeah,
took us way left.
we're gonna talk about that
We're
another
gonna come
week.
back to you in a second, Gonzalez, but I want to
We're gonna
hear
talk about
Derek's
that another
answer.
time.
I want to hear Derek's answer on my question, which was, what about
As far as the lines are different, but
okay.
Lamar is Lamar.
Okay, I guess okay, you're right. You said the team, you said they would look about the same. So that's
I
fair.
say they
So
both
never
will be
mind.
successful.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
both
yeah,
will be
yeah.
successful.
So never mind. Because I was talking
Yeah.
about team overall. So never mind. So never mind.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
saying you should
I
switch the
agree.
quarterbacks. I think both teams, and it shows the value of that person to that team is what I'm kind of getting at. If you take Lamar, put it on Buffalo, you got Lamar last year without an okay run back and then doing their thing. You know what I'm saying? Doing more with less.
And that's why I said that argument should have never came into play because you already know, you already got enough tape that says that don't stop Lamar from being Lamar.
It
Because
don't.
he got,
Not
if
Lamar's Lamar.
anything, that stole some yards from him. Because the joke at the beginning of the season was he not gonna even get to rush as much because he on the team with Lamar.
Well, and then let's not sugarcoat or gloss over all the people that said he wasn't a quarterback and he putting up quarterback numbers. I just want to say that,
Yeah, just
and
say it.
because then stats don't matter when he running and when he running all the time and he not a great quarterback. Then okay, he ain't really a quarterback. He a running back playing quarterback. But then when he started having quarterback stats, then it's stats. It's not a stats award. Stats don't matter. Oh, now they don't matter
And
because
and
because he's
and
doing
this
both.
team beat the number one seed over here and the number one seed over there, and
Yeah,
and and
and
because Lamar beat Josh,
all
broke
right,
him down.
all
Anyway,
right. We gonna move. We gonna
we gonna
move
move
because
on. Look, it's New
we'll
Year's
keep
Eve.
going on
It's
that.
New Year's Eve. So I gotta say Happy New Year's, early New Year's to all of the fans of Fan Snob Chronicles, and remind you to also make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Gransberry, because I'm gonna try to do a lot more content over there in the new year, mainly because all of these different social media algorithms giving us the blues sometimes. But we want to thank y'all for joining us tonight. Maybe you haven't headed off to church, the synagogues, or your backyard, wherever way to make you happy.
Just be
We
safe.
want, but be safe at it. And yeah, thanks, Big Sarge, for joining in with us. And I know we normally use this show to talk about Pick'em, and we haven't mentioned. Let me clear my throat. We haven't mentioned who's in first place.
Oh yeah, we did. And yeah, we did kind of gloss over that.
Uh, uh, and you know what? I usually don't even get too hype about being in first
Yeah,
place.
you do. Every time you in first place, you get. Every time you in first place, we got to hear about it. What you talking about? Even when you ain't in first place, you be like, "Well, I'm the head of the show, the first on this show."
Okay, fair point. But let me take
Okay,
my glasses off for this one though. Okay.
okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
So part of the reason that's making it funny. Now, of course, the season's not over, but you can't beat me had been in first place for a few weeks.
Yeah,
And shout out to, we know who it is, but we're gonna keep him as you can't beat me. And normally I wouldn't even make a big deal about it, but he probably would argue he lost first place because he didn't get to put in his picks. And that don't mean anything because last year I did that a couple of Thursdays and still won the year.
the rules
And
been the rules all
the
week,
rules
all
been
year.
the rules since we've been playing. So it's a ton of people who forget to put in a pick
Yeah,
and lose some grounding or whatever. And it's been some weeks people just had bad weeks. They barely picked four or five games right. And I'm part of that people.
yeah.
So I worked very hard
Hey,
to get back
hey,
up. And
hey. You can't
it's
rest your starters until you got the vision. Till you got the win. You can't rest your starters.
you can't. And mind you, our pick'em guys, we go all the way through to the Super Bowl. So it's not like he still can't win. We actually in a three-way tie. We have the
Yeah.
same points, but I won the tiebreakers, which is funny because I almost perfectly picked the score to the Lions and the 49ers game. And I
Okay.
almost perfectly picked the score to the Browns game as well. So really, I had got first place before Monday Night Football. We all had picked Detroit to win, but I still stayed in first because I almost picked the exact score. Because, like I said earlier, they had been averaging 40 points. So I put them getting 40 points because that's what it's been taking lately, even when they win. But it's just funny to me because the name of his team is You Can't Beat Me. And so I told him, you have to win. When you name your team, You Can't Beat Me, you have to win. So you better
Yeah.
buckle up and win because that's a bold statement considering that I've already beat you.
We
I
know,
beat you
T.
last year. You can
We
change
know,
your
T.
name, but I beat you last year and I gave you the first prize. because I was in first and I bumped myself. So if you ever play on pick 'em on my show, Fan Snob Chronicles, I never give the prize to myself if I win. Matter of fact, all the co-hosts, we bump ourselves out. So if you come in second or Derek comes in second and you come in third, we bump you up. We play to, for the gloat and fun of it on the show with each other, but we want the people that's willing to play to win. So, Mr. You can't beat me. You should have named your team. You can't beat me now because I already done beat you. So I just had to throw that in there. I just throw that in there.
All right. So hey, tell him who gonna win Sunday night. tell him who you picking to win this coming Sunday night. We got the game. We just gonna talk about the pepper. We ain't worry about the three piece because we're gonna
Yeah,
let you
yeah.
get out of
Other
here.
pepper.
So
Okay.
so the pepper, we're gonna talk about Sunday night. We got top seed in the NFC at stake. So you either gonna be the top seed with a bye, or you're gonna be the 5 seed going on the road. You
You
got
want to know
the
you want
Vikings
to know the
versus
truth about
Detroit.
how I feel right now today?
How you feel today? Now what you picking on the pick 'em? How you feeling today? You ain't gotta give me a winner. You just tell me your thoughts of it.
My thoughts is I think the Vikings are going to play a better game. And
Okay.
I think it'll be close as it was last time.
Okay.
I think Campbell's going to be just as aggressive with his fourth downs, but I just feel like the Vikings have a little bit more defense.
Well,
And
it's a lot.
it,
It's a lot.
it is. And what I'm saying is it's enough to edge out. And so for me, I picked the Vikings. I just think it's the Vikings.
So this is Vikings on the
Dallas and
road, right? So Detroit at home. I think this is the game what Brian mentioned about having 10 starters out on defense and those guys on IR. I think this is the game that catches up with them. I think the Vikings is a team. You got how we feel about on this show, how we feel about division games. Division games are always pretty tight. We saw that with the Vikings and Green Bay. The Vikings jumped out. Green Bay made it a 2-point game because they're going to keep fighting till the end. I think this is the game where they're going to miss some of those pieces on defense,
Because
and
last time it was only a
it
field goal
might be a
game.
shootout. It was only a
Last
field goal,
time it was only a field goal game. They beat them in a
which
field goal.
makes sense. But now they got even less of those defensive pieces. So, and with the way the Vikings offense is, I think I'm giving the edge this week to the Vikings. 14 is crazy. So I wouldn't give them 14. If you want to give me those points, hit me out on the side and we can talk about something. But no, I think the Vikings edge them out. And I think it's gonna be a very entertaining game to watch. I just think it's gonna be crazy. But
It's so entertaining. I was really trying to figure out how I could get
how
to
to get there.
Detroit.
Yeah, how to get there.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I can explain this because I really need to put more effort into this in 2025. I don't know. I think people think that, I think people should expand their game attendance outside of their team. And I mean, even more so than when you may go to a game with a fan of another team. I mean, strictly attending just a great matchup. You know, one year I went to LA and I watched the Chargers versus the Chiefs. It went into overtime. Amazing game. And then here I was Sunday night, Washington versus the Falcons. Great game, overtime. I think you really, I mean, we watch games on TV. Obviously, you do as a fan. I think there is such a joy and excitement to just be able to watch the game for every good play on both sides of the ball without vesting yourself into your fantasy picks, into the coaching, into the players. I think you lose all of that tension and you get back to the joy of the game. Because sometimes as fans, we only want to have joy in our winning, right? But when you have nothing vested other than a good time and a good game, it's still indescribable to me. And yes, you don't know it'll happen, but like I felt like the Atlanta versus Washington game would be a good game. And it ended up having more surprising elements to it by
Hmm.
changing the quarterback. But I definitely thought it would be a great game. And I definitely enjoyed being able to see Jaden play as a rookie. So it just kind of Penix too. I mean, I watched him, in person in the championship earlier this year when they lost to Michigan. But at the same time, I challenge you to just pick a good game, even if it's like, one of these good NFC North matchups, in healthier years, when the NFC East can get back to competitive matchups, or like how this year with the Eagles and Washington games were very competitive and great games. Now, I'm personally not siding with me showing up to Philly, even as a non-fan of either team. It's a little rough. I don't care what they say. I shout out to the fan that gave the ball back to McKee for his first touchdown, but it's a little rough in them stadium parks. Uh,
I still got to get it in at some point.
I know it's a little rough. I'm just gonna say that out loud. I still remember being honked at and then ran to the engine. I wasn't sure if they was gonna hit me, trying to
Yeah,
cross the sidewalk. And they won. But I just challenge you to try to find a good matchup game to go to. And I can't say honestly that it's still off the table. I just, as soon as I saw they changed that to Sunday Night Football, I was just like, whew, that would take me back to Detroit. And I don't even like Detroit
I was
like
about to
that.
say that's the only reason you're going back. That's the only reason you're going back. I
So
don't
yeah.
know. 2025 now, Fan Snob Chronicle Road Cane trip. I don't know. Let's
Yeah,
just
I've been
plant
getting
that
a lot
seed.
of people, I mean, I've
Plant
been
that
getting hit up
seed.
a lot. I need to plant that seed because a lot of people have been asking me about what games for next year. Of course, we know the matchups. And some of the people asking are not a fan of either team. They just want to go to a road game with me.
Yeah.
So
I, let's plant that seed. You know,
okay,
maybe
okay.
put it out. Put it out.
So
The earlier we
so
get
right
it out, you
before we
might get some
go,
hits.
it's about that time. Who is what's your vibe for that game before we go?
For the Vikings game,
Yeah. Shout out to Penn State right now. They up 7-0.
Vikings. Vikings. I'm going
Like,
Vikings.
oh, you did kind of say that already. You said
Yeah.
you don't know by 14, but
Yeah, but I'm going Vikings.
the kid can ball, Daniels. That smile and grin is insidious.
And that's
Yeah,
coming from a Cowboy fan. So hey.
yeah, yeah. And he's so calm. He's just so like at peace. Um, so yeah, yeah. Well, guys, we really appreciate your time and efforts. Uh, it's hard to get together, but hey, it's the last day of the new year. So if you spend it with us, we are so thankful. And you know where to find me at the Gransberry on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Please, please, please go to YouTube
Go to YouTube.
and
Subscribe,
and
notify, all that good stuff.
all that good stuff, all that good stuff, all that good stuff. And so, like I said, we appreciate you for joining us tonight. And peace.
Peace and blessings.